My parents drove 900 miles to my brother's lake house to hang a welcome banner over his boat dock. 6 weeks later, they told me the 40-minute drive to my wedding was more than their bodies could take. Let me say that again, so it lands the way it landed on me. 2 days in the car, each way, to watch my brother point at his new pontoon. But 40 minutes down I-70 to watch their daughter get married was, and I'm quoting my mother here, just so much, honey, with my hip the way it is. I walked down the aisle with 2 chairs sitting empty in the front row. My husband's father walked me. The whole room saw those chairs, and 3 weeks after that, my father showed up at the hospital where I work, carrying a fat brown folder with my name typed on the tab. He didn't come to say he was sorry. He came because he needed something from me. He had no idea what he was about to hand over. But I can't start there. To make you understand the folder, I have to take you back a lot further than the wedding. This didn't begin with 2 empty chairs. It began the year I turned 9, when my grandfather sat me down at his kitchen table and told me I was going to be okay. He was wrong about how, but he was right that I would be. He just didn't live long enough to see the shape of it. My name is Corinne Merrick. I'm 32. I'm a pediatric ICU nurse in Columbus, Ohio, which means I spend my days keeping very small people alive while their parents fall apart in the hallway. I'm good at it. I'm good at reading a room, at knowing who needs a hand on their shoulder and who needs the truth. I learned all of that at home, watching my mother, learning exactly where I stood by the size of her smile. My brother got the big smile. I got the one she used on the mailman. Sawyer is 4 years older than me. From the outside, we looked like a normal family, and I think that's the part that took me the longest to untangle. There was no yelling, no broken dishes, just a slow, quiet accounting that always came out the same way. He was the son, I was the backup. The first time I really understood it, I was 7. There was a school music program, and they were handing out rental instruments. I wanted the violin so badly I could feel it in my teeth. I'd been practicing the way you hold it with a ruler and a shoebox. My mother told me instruments were expensive and I should focus on my grades, which were already straight A's. Thank you. That same fall, Sawyer joined a travel hockey team. Skates, pads, ice time, tournaments in 3 states. Nobody mentioned a budget for that. I asked once why he got hockey, and I didn't get a rented violin that cost less than one of his sticks. My mother said, "Your brother needs an outlet. You're more of a quiet, indoor kid." I was 7. I hadn't chosen to be quiet. I'd just figured out that quiet was safer. My grandfather noticed. Grandpa Ezra was my father's father, a retired railroad engineer with hands like tree roots and a pocket watch he wound every single morning. He wasn't a warm man on the surface. He didn't do a lot of hugging, but he watched. He'd sit in his chair at every holiday and just watch how the room moved. And I think somewhere in there he saw a little girl learning to disappear. When I was 9, he called me into his kitchen while everyone else was in the yard. He poured me a ginger ale in a real glass, not a plastic cup, and he said, "You keep your head down too much, Corinne. You watch your feet when you should be watching where you're going." I didn't understand it then. I understood it eventually. Grandpa Ezra died when I was 13. Heart in his sleep, the way the kind one seemed to go. At the funeral, my mother cried the loudest, and I remember thinking that was strange, because she'd rolled her eyes about him for years. I sat in the back pew and didn't cry at all, because I'd taught myself not to do anything loud. My brother gave a reading. Nobody asked me to. After the funeral, life kept sorting us. Sawyer went to St. Ambrose, the Catholic prep school across town, $16,000 a year, blazers and Latin, and a college counselor who knew everyone. When my time came, my mother sat me down and explained very reasonably that St. Ambrose wasn't the right fit for me. I was so independent, she said. You'll do great wherever you land. I landed at Eastland Public, which was free, and which I did, in fact, do great at because I had absolutely no other option. I kept a list. I want to be honest about that, because a lot of people in the comments of my life have accused me of keeping score, and they're right, I did. From the time I was 14, I kept a running tally in a green spiral notebook of what got spent on him and what got spent on me, not because I was greedy, because I needed proof that I wasn't imagining it. When you grow up being told the sky is green, you start collecting evidence that it's blue just to keep yourself sane. Sawyer's Prep School, $64,000 over 4 years. The semester in Barcelona, junior year of college, $9,000, plus the camera they bought him for it. His degree from a private university in Cincinnati that covered what his scholarships didn't, and I watched the checks go out. When he graduated debt-free with a communications degree and a tan, my parents threw him a party in the backyard and gave him a check for $3,000 to get started. I got into Ohio State's nursing program, good school, hard program, and I was proud. I asked my father, exactly once, if there was any help. He looked genuinely puzzled, the way you'd look if a stranger asked to borrow your car. "We're stretched a little thin right now, sweetheart," he said. "But you've always been so good with money." I was 19. I had $400 in a savings account from a summer at a nursing home. I signed for my first loan that week, and I signed for a lot more after that, $58,000 for the bachelor's. Then I did an accelerated track to get my critical care certification and my master's, another $26,000. $84,000 total was the price of my career. Sawyer's education cost more than that, and he paid for none of it. I did the math so many times I could recite it in my sleep. $84,000 at graduation, $680 a month, every month, for 9 years. $81,000 paid in, and I still owed $49,000. That's how loans work. That's the joke of it. You can pour your whole life into a hole, and the hole barely notices. And here's the part that still makes my face hot. Starting the year I got my first real nursing paycheck, 2015, I began sending my parents money, $350 a month. It started because my mother mentioned, in that light little voice she uses when she's about to take something from you, that things were tight now that they were older, and wasn't that what family did? My father had a full pension from the county. Their house was nearly paid off. They were not tight. But I was 23, and I still wanted so badly for her to look at me the way she looked at Sawyer, so I sent it. $350, the first of every month for 9 years. 42 payments. No, more. Over 100. Almost $38,000. You want to know the worst part? Sawyer never sent them a dime. I asked my mother about it once carefully, and she said, "Oh, Sawyer has the kids in the boat payment he can't be expected to." He couldn't be expected to. But I could. That was the whole architecture of my childhood in one sentence. There was a winter, 2018, when my furnace died and I couldn't cover the repair and my loan payment and the $350 in the same month. So I slept in 2 sweaters and a coat for days, and I still sent them the money. On the first, like clockwork, they never once said thank you. It wasn't a gift by then. It was rent I paid on the hope of being loved. I met Julian in the spring of 2021 at the world's saddest hospital fundraiser, both of us hiding by the dessert table because we hated small talk. He's a paramedic. He has calloused hands and a laugh that comes up from somewhere real. And on our 3rd date, he met my parents and said, on the drive home, "Your mom didn't ask you a single question about yourself." I said they were just tired. He said, "Corinne, they talked about your brother's boat for 40 minutes. I didn't have an answer for that. He didn't push. But he noticed things the way I'd trained myself not to. He noticed my mother texted Sawyer twice during our dinner and never once looked at her phone to text me back the whole time we dated. He noticed that when I made charge nurse, my father said, "That's nice," and asked if I could still make the family reunion. He was the first person who ever said out loud, "You don't owe them $350 a month." I told him it was what family did. He said, Family goes both directions. I wasn't ready to hear it. I heard it later. We got engaged in the summer of 2024. Simple ring, his grandmother's, and I loved it more than anything they could have bought. When I told my mother, she said, "Oh, that's nice, honey. Does Julian have good benefits? Paramedics don't make much." That was the whole reaction. Then she asked if I'd seen Sawyer's new lake house pictures. The lake house. In September 2025, Sawyer and his wife bought a second home on a lake in North Carolina, a vacation place, $360,000 for a couple who already had a 5-bedroom in the suburbs. My mother sent a group text to the entire extended family. "Big news! Sawyer and Bree bought a lake house! So proud of our boy!" 17 exclamation points. I counted because that's who I am now. My wedding invitations had gone out 4 weeks before that text. There was no group text about my wedding. My parents flew down for the housewarming. 2 flights, a rental car, a hotel, the whole thing. My mother posted 41 photos over 8 days, helping Sawyer set up his dock. Sunset from the boat, blessed beyond measure. Family time is the best time. I saw every single one. My wedding was 5 weeks away. They brought Sawyer a grill and a set of Adirondack chairs and, I found out later, a check for $2,000 to help with the closing costs. For a man who makes 6 figures and owns 2 houses, I texted my mother when they got home. "Welcome back. How was the trip?" She wrote back the next day. "Wonderful but exhausting. Travel really takes it out of us at our age." 3 weeks later, that exhaustion became the reason they missed my wedding. The first sign was a phone call in early November, 12 days out. "Corinne, remind me what time your thing is?" My thing. 2 o'clock, Mom. It's on the invitation. And the schedule I emailed you. Right. And that's in Columbus? That's a bit of a haul for us. It's 40 minutes, Mom. You've made that drive 100 times. Well, it feels longer at our age. You just flew to North Carolina. Silence. Then. That's completely different. We were sitting the whole time. I said I'd see her Saturday, and I hung up before my voice could crack because I already knew. I'd known since the group text, honestly. I just hadn't let myself hold it yet. 4 days before the wedding, my father called me at the hospital. He never called me at work. I picked up in the break room with a granola bar in my hand. "Corinne, we need to talk about Saturday." "What about Saturday, Dad?" I made him say it. "Your mother's hip has been acting up. The doctor said she shouldn't sit in a car that long. It's 40 minutes. It's more like an hour with weekend traffic." There is no weekend traffic between Dayton and Columbus, and we both knew it. "Dad, you drove 2 days each way to Sawyer's dock." "That was planned, honey. And Sawyer really needed us. They'd just moved in. And I don't need you at my wedding. You've got Julian's whole family. You'll be surrounded. You've always been the one who's fine on her own." I stood in that break room with the granola bar going soft in my fist, and I heard the entire story of my life in that sentence. You've always been the one who's fine on her own, as if fine had been a gift they gave me, as if I hadn't built it out of scrap because they left me nothing else. "We'll send a nice card," he said, "and we'll see you at Christmas." I hung up. I stood there for a minute. Then, I went back onto the floor and helped a 9-year-old's mother understand her son's ventilator settings, and I was gentle and patient and completely present, because that's the thing about being the fine one. You learn to bleed on the inside while your hands stay steady. When my shift ended, I sat in my car in the garage and I cried until the windows fogged. Then, I drove home and told Julian, and he held me on the kitchen floor and didn't say a single "I told you so," which is one of the 10,000 reasons I married him. My Uncle Desmond called the next morning. He's my father's younger brother, and he'd been half estranged from my dad for years, though I didn't fully know why yet. "Your father just told me he's not coming to your wedding," he said. "Is that true?" "It's true. He's a coward, Corinne. I want you to know I think that. I'm driving up. I'll sit in his empty seat if that's what it takes." I told him he didn't have to, he said. "I've been letting your father off the hook for 20 years, and I'm done. I'll see you Saturday. I want you to remember Uncle Desmond. He's important later, and I know some of you are already asking why I'd trust a man who's stayed quiet. He didn't stay quiet, is the thing. He got loud a long time ago to the wrong person and got frozen out for it, and he'd been waiting years for me to catch up. Saturday came. I got dressed at Julian's parents' house. His sister did my hair and kept refilling my coffee and telling me I was beautiful, and I kept checking my phone. Nothing. At noon, I turned it off. I'm not proud of how many times I checked it. I was 32 years old, and some 9-year-old part of me still thought that maybe if the day was perfect enough, they'd surprise me. They didn't. The church held 80. 78 seats were full of people who'd chosen to be there. 2 chairs, front row, aisle side, most visible seats in the building stayed empty. I could have had someone move them. I left them exactly where they were. I wanted every person present to see the shape of the whole. Julian's father knocked on the bride's room door before the ceremony. Big, quiet man, hands like my grandfather's. Now that I think about it, he said, "It would be the honor of my life to walk you down that aisle, Corinne. And I want you to know I don't consider it a stand-in for anybody. I consider it mine." I made it about 4 words into thanking him before I lost it, and he just stood there and let me. I walked down that aisle at 2:04. I looked at the empty chairs as I passed, and I did not look away. Uncle Desmond had moved up from his assigned seat and was sitting in the front row, taking up some of that space but not all of it, because there wasn't enough of him to fill what they'd left. Julian cried at the altar. I cried on my vows, right on the word cherish. During the father-daughter portion of the reception, Julian's dad and I danced to a song my grandfather used to hum, and halfway through he leaned down and said, "You're my daughter now too." And I understood finally what a father was supposed to sound like. The next 3 weeks were silence. No call, no card, no gift. On the 1st of December, for the first time in 9 years, I did not send my parents $350. I want to be very clear that this was the moment I stopped, because I know some of you have watched women like me keep paying and wanted to reach through the screen and shake us. I stopped that morning. I sat at my kitchen table with the banking app open and my thumb over the transfer button, and I thought about the empty chairs and I closed the app. It felt like setting down a bag I'd been carrying so long I'd forgotten my arms could hang loose. On December 5th, my father left a voicemail. Not "I'm sorry we missed your wedding." Not "How are you?" He said, "Corinne, it's Dad. The usual didn't come through this month. I'm sure it's just a mix-up. Give us a call." That was it. He'd noticed the money before he'd noticed my whole wedding. I listened to it 3 times and then I deleted it and I didn't call back. Here's where the folder comes in. My great-aunt Marceline, my grandfather's sister, died in late October. I found out from a mailed funeral card, because of course nobody told me. She'd left $40,000 in her will to be split between me and Sawyer. Her estate attorney, a man named Mr. Hargrove, was doing his due diligence, which apparently includes checking on any prior family trusts connected to the deceased. And in the course of that, Mr. Hargrove found something. A UTMA custodial account, established in 2001. For me. I didn't know any of this yet, but my father did. Mr. Hargrove had sent my parents a letter on the 2nd of December, requesting a full accounting of that account, and my father had spent 13 days panicking about it. And on December 15th, a Monday, at 2:47 in the afternoon, he showed up in the lobby of Nationwide Children's Hospital. I was charting at the station when my coworker Dahlia leaned over. "Corinne, there's an older man downstairs asking for you. Says he's your dad. He looks awful. Han, he's shaking." I took the elevator down slower than I've ever taken anything. There he was by the information desk in his good khakis and the polo he wears to Sawyer's events, gray and thin and clutching a brown accordion folder to his chest like it might float away. He looked terrified. I should have felt something soft. I felt nothing but cold, careful attention, the same thing I feel walking into a coding room. There's a family consult room off the main lobby, glass on one side where we tell people the worst news of their lives. I took him there. I did not sit. He did. The folder went on the table between us, and it looked too heavy for what a folder should be. I know you're upset about the wedding, he started. Is that why you're here? No. I'm here about your grandfather's estate. Grandpa Ezra died 19 years ago. Why are we talking about his estate? Your great-aunt Marceline passed in October. I know, I got the card. Nobody called me. He flinched. It's been complicated. You flew to a lake house. That wasn't complicated. He opened the folder. His hands really were shaking. Marceline left $40,000 split between you and Sawyer. But the attorney handling it, he found something else. An account from 2001. What account? He slid a letter across the table. Hargrove's letterhead, a request for a full accounting of a custodial account. Beneficiary, Corinne Marie Merrick. Then he slid over the account documents themselves, and the floor of my whole life tilted. Uniform transfers to Minors Act. State of Ohio, established April of 2001. Initial deposit, $140,000. Beneficiary, me. Custodians, my mother and father. Your grandfather set it up, my father said quietly. For your education. I stared at the number until it stopped being a number. I took out $84,000 in loans, I said. I know. Then where is it? Where is $140,000, Dad? He didn't answer, so I already knew, but I made him show me. He pulled out the bank statements. Years of them, and I sat down for the first time because my legs stopped agreeing to hold me. August 2002, $16,000, education expense. I pulled out my phone with a hand that wasn't quite mine, and I searched St. Ambrose tuition, 2002. $16,000 a year, Sawyer's Prep School, August 2003, $16,000, 2004, $16,000, 2005, $16,000. Then, a withdrawal in 2008, $9,000, the same fall my brother spent a semester in Barcelona, then 2006 through 2010, in chunks, $69,000 total, matching my brother's college years right down to the semesters. Every single withdrawal from the account my grandfather made for me lined up, to the dollar, to the month, with something my brother wanted. There was nothing in there for me. Not one line. While those withdrawals were happening, I was filling out FAFSA forms alone at the kitchen table because no one would sit with me to do them. We made hard choices, my father said. Both of you kids needed things. It had my name on it. Family money is family money, Corinne. We figured you'd understand. You were always so capable. You had scholarships. I had scholarships because I worked 40 hours a week and slept 4. I was capable because you made me be. That is not the same as you helping me. Your brother needed more support. My brother got Barcelona. I got a night shift at a nursing home and a coat to sleep in. You're twisting this. I'm reading your bank statements. Then he did the thing that turned my grief into something with a spine. He pulled out one last document, freshly printed, and slid it across. The attorney needs this signed to close out Marceline's estate cleanly. I read it. Beneficiary release and acknowledgement. I, Corinne Merrick, acknowledge receipt of the full distribution of the custodial trust established for my benefit in 2001, totaling $140,000, and release the estate from any further obligation, and confirm that all funds were properly applied to my educational expenses. I looked up at him. You want me to sign a paper saying you didn't steal from me? I want you to help your family. If you don't sign, the estate gets tangled up. Sawyer's share of Marceline's money could get held up. His kid's college fund is counting on that. His kid's college fund. From the aunt's money. While I paid off a debt, his tuition should have covered. Get out, I said. Corinne, you stole $140,000 that a dying man left specifically for me. You spent it on the son you actually wanted. You let me drown in debt for 9 years. You took my monthly money without a thank you. You skipped my wedding for a hip that flies to lake houses, and now you want me to sign a legal document swearing you did nothing wrong so my brother can have even more. Get out of this room. He stood. He went to the door, and then, and I still can hardly believe this part, he was so rattled that he left the folder. All of it. Every statement, every document, the release form, the letter. He left the whole thing sitting on the table where we tell parents their children aren't going to make it. He left me the weapon, and he didn't even know it was a weapon. I sat alone in that glass room. Dahlia watched me through the wall but knew better than to come in, and at the very bottom of that folder, underneath all the statements, I found a sealed envelope. Cream paper gone soft with age. My name on the front in handwriting I hadn't seen in 19 years, shaky and deliberate. For Corinne, to be opened when you're grown. Grandpa Ezra. My hands shook so hard I nearly tore the letter along with the flap. He'd written it in 2001, the spring he set up the account. He said he was watching me become quiet, and that quiet in a child is not peace, it's a wound learning to hold still. He said he'd noticed the violin and the hockey and every one even Christmas, and that he wanted me to know it wasn't because I was worth less. It was because the people who should have seen me clearest had stopped looking. He said he was putting away $140,000 so that I would have choices, so I could study whatever I loved without drowning, so I could be free. He said he had to make my parents the custodians because the law required it, and that he was trusting them to do right by me. And then he wrote a line I have read probably 400 times since. If they don't, Corinne, if they take what's yours and spend it elsewhere, then you fight for it. You are not the quiet one. You are the strong one. There's a difference, and I need you to learn it before I'm gone. He said he was leaving me his pocket watch, the one he wound every morning, so I'd remember that time spent is time you don't get back, and that I should spend mine on my own life and no one else's. He signed it, "You were always seen, sweetheart, by me, every single day." Grandpa Ezra. I put my head down on that table in that room, and I sobbed in a way I hadn't let myself since I was a child. He knew. He'd known in 2001 exactly what they would do, and he'd tried to build me a door out, and they'd walked through it and taken everything behind it. But the door was still there. He'd left me the key at the bottom of a folder my father was too scared to remember. I texted Julian one line, "I need you. Can you come?" He wrote back before I'd set the phone down, "On my way." That night he read everything. He's a paramedic. He doesn't rattle. But he was quiet for a long time, and then he said, "Corinne, this isn't just unfair. This is theft. You were the beneficiary. They were fiduciaries. There are laws about this." He wanted me to sign a paper saying it was fine. "You didn't sign it." Of course I didn't. Good. "Tomorrow we find you a lawyer." Her name was Yvonne Barrett. Small firm downtown, 3 attorneys, a specialty in trusts and fiduciary disputes. She was maybe 55. Reading glasses pushed up into gray hair, a way of listening that made me feel like the only case she'd ever had. She read the whole folder, taking notes, asking clean questions. Finally, she set down her pen. "How much do you still owe on your loans?" $49,000. "And they took $140,000 of yours and spent it on your brother." "Yes. Corinne, this is a textbook breach of fiduciary duty. Under Ohio law, a custodian on a UTM account can only use the funds for the named minor. They can't move it to another child. That's not a gray area. That's theft with paperwork. What are my options?" We send a demand letter, full accounting, full restitution, principal, plus interest, plus my fees. If they refuse, we file. And Corinne, with that letter from your grandfather, and those matched withdrawals, I would very much like to be the attorney across the table from them. I told her to send it. I called Uncle Desmond that night. "I need to tell you something about the trust Grandpa Ezra left me." He let out a long breath. "Finally. I've been waiting years for you to find out." "You knew? Your father told me in 2007 that he was recligating Dad's money for both kids. I told him it was yours, that it had your name on it, that Dad set it up for you on purpose. He told me to mind my own business. That's why we stopped speaking, Corinne. It wasn't some mystery falling out. I couldn't sit at his table knowing what he was doing to you. Will you tell that to my lawyer? I'll tell it to a judge. I'll tell it to anybody who asks. There was a witness, too. My grandfather's old attorney, a Mr. Sterling, still alive, still sharp, who'd drawn up the trust in 2001 and remembered it because Ezra had been so specific. He told me your parents would try to raid it, Mr. Sterling said on the phone. He said, and I wrote it in my notes, they'll spend it on the boy. Set it up so she can fight them. I've kept that file for 20 years. I always wondered if you'd call. By the third week of December, Yvonne had sworn statements from Uncle Desmond and Mr. Sterling and copies of every matched withdrawal. The demand letter went out 2 days before Christmas. My parents did not have a happy holiday. Neither did I, but mine was quiet and clean, spent on Julian's parents' couch. And quiet and clean was more than I'd ever gotten from my own. They fought it for exactly 9 days. Then their lawyer called Yvonne and said they wanted to settle. Yvonne walked me through it in her office. They're offering to acknowledge improper withdrawal and pay restitution. $175,000. Principal plus interest. In writing, it will say they wrongfully took funds from your custodial account. That's legalese for they stole from you and admit it. Take it, I said. She smiled. I thought you might. Fighting for the last 20 could take a year. This ends it now with an admission. Take it. I signed the settlement on the 10th of January. $175,000 from my mother and father to me. To pay it, they had to sell the house on Larkspur Lane they'd owned since 1994, the house where I'd slept in 2 sweaters while I mailed them my rent on love. It sold for $310,000. They moved into a 2-bedroom rental across town, and in the settlement of Marceline's estate, once the accounting was clean, Sawyer received exactly nothing. Because the improper withdrawals were credited against his side. I received the full $40,000. All of it legal, all of it in writing, all of it, finally, mine. The first check came by courier on the 15th. $100,000, the first installment. A certified check, which is the only reason the next part happened the way it did, because certified funds clear immediately, no waiting on anything. Julian asked how it felt to hold it. I said, it feels like the first thing that's ever actually been mine. We went to the bank that afternoon. The teller smiled and said, congratulations on your inheritance. I didn't correct her, because in a way she was right. It had just taken a lawyer to deliver it. At 3:30 that afternoon, I logged into my student loan account. Balance, $49,200 and change. I clicked, make a payment. I typed the full amount, pay in full. The screen asked if I was sure. Julian was standing behind me with his hands on my shoulders. Do it, he said. I clicked. It thought about it for a second, the little wheel spinning, and then it said, payment successful. Your balance is 009 years, $680 a month. Gone. I turned around and put my face in his chest, and I didn't say anything, and neither did he. Then he handed me his own laptop because he had $11,000 left on his medic school loans, and I paid those off too, and we sat on the floor of our apartment and ordered a pizza and held on to each other, and for the first time since I was 19 years old, I did not owe one single person $1 single. We bought a house in February. Small, a 1930s brick 2-bedroom, on a street with old trees, a fireplace that actually works, and a porch just wide enough for 2 chairs. Down payment came out of the settlement. The mortgage is about the same as our old rent, except now we're building something instead of handing it away. When we got the keys, I stood on the front walk and I said, out loud, this is ours, not theirs, not anybody's expectation of me. Ours. The second check came on the 15th of February, the last installment, and with it a small padded box with no note, just my father's handwriting on the label. Inside was my grandfather's pocket watch, still keeping time, still needing to be wound every morning. He'd mentioned it in his letter. "It suits you," Julian said. "I wear it on a chain now. I wind it every morning. It reminds me what time is for." I took 25,000 of what was left, and I did the thing I think Grandpa Ezra actually wanted. I set up a small scholarship through the Ohio State College of Nursing for first-generation students who get no financial help from their families. The Ezra Merrick Nursing Scholarship. It's not enormous. It'll fund one student a year, maybe two. The first one went to a 19-year-old named Imani Brooks, working 2 jobs, estranged from a family that told her nursing was a waste. I met her in a little campus office at the end of February. When I told her she'd been selected, she said, "I don't know what to say." I said she didn't have to say anything. I told her my grandfather left me money for school, and that people who were supposed to protect me took it, and that I got it back, and that now I wanted to make sure she never had to sleep in a coat to keep a promise nobody made to her. She started crying, and I let her, the way Julian's father let me. Sunday, the 1st of March, we had dinner at Julian's parents' house. His mother and father, his sister and her husband, Uncle Desmond, who'd driven up again, Mr. Sterling, who it turns out makes an excellent pie, pot roast, the good plates. Toward the end, I stood up, and I don't do that. I'm the quiet one, or I used to be. "I want to say something," I said, and everyone got still. 3 months ago, I got married with 2 empty chairs in the front row. A few weeks after that, my father came to my work and asked me to sign a paper saying he hadn't stolen from me, and a little while ago I found a letter from my grandfather, written when I was 9, telling me I was seen even when I felt invisible. I held up my wrist with the watch on it. I don't have the family I was born into, but I'm sitting in a room full of people who showed up, not because they had to, because they wanted to. Uncle Desmond raised his glass. "To Ezra," he said. "He'd have loved this." Julian's father raised his. "To Corinne. He'd be proud of you." "To the family you choose," his mother said, and we drank to it. I haven't spoken to my parents since the day I signed the settlement. I haven't spoken to my brother since he texted me, "You're really going to bankrupt your own parents over money that's decades old?" And I wrote back the only true thing I had. It was never decades old to me. I paid interest on it every single month, and then I blocked him. I won't pretend it doesn't hurt, because it does. But it isn't that I miss them. It's that I'm mourning a mother who should have looked at me the way she looked at him, and a father who should have protected the door my grandfather built, and a brother who could have, just once, said this isn't fair to my sister. That family. I mourn the family I should have had. What I don't mourn anymore is the version of me who kept waiting for them to become it. She's gone. In her place is a woman who winds a dead man's watch every morning, who owns a porch with 2 chairs and fills both of them, who paid off 9 years of somebody else's choices in a single afternoon, who put her name on a scholarship instead of a release form. My grandfather set aside $140,000 to buy me a way out. They stole it. And it turns out the thing he was really trying to give me wasn't the money at all. It was the sentence at the bottom of that letter, the one I finally understand. "You are not the quiet one. You are the strong one. There's a difference." He was right. It just took me 32 years and an empty folder to learn it.